Flashing light?
I don't.
CJ, do I have
Oh,
to
no
hit the-
flashing light. No button there. We're going to control it on this end, okay?
Perfect.
All right, you got the helm. Tell me when.
It's not like anybody.
You're live on YouTube now.
So now, let's begin the order really quick, if possible, and we'll have the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do something about this thing right here. Okay. Andrew Benson.
Here.
Doug Day.
Here.
Bronwyn Losey.
Here.
Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edward Levine.
Here. So, first item, which is number 4 in our packet, is the 2022 budget discussion. Charmaine was nice enough to send out a brief summation, even though people can draw their own conclusions. And once again, if you don't know the exact answer tonight, or if you have other questions, please email Charmaine and CC me. And also, you have the option to discuss with the department heads privately if you have any questions about their departments. Having said that, are there any questions? I guess we're going out about order. Andra?
Before we start, I would like to respectfully ask that we end the meeting way before 10 o'clock. I get up extremely early and I don't function much after now.
We can adjourn after budget.
Right? Excuse me?
We can adjourn after budget. We talk about Velastation and the moratorium.
Well, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
But
So
if-
I've got the consultant on the line about Bell Station because I thought they were going first on the agenda.
okay. Anyway, I'd like to respectfully ask that we not repeat ourselves and we respect each other and just go as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Okay, having said that, do you have any questions about the budget?
No, I didn't.
Okay, Bronwyn?
Yes, I have a couple, and I know I wasn't on right at the beginning. Is there a reason? Is your video not working, folks in the town hall?
Can you not see us?
No.
Let's push the button and see what happens.
Well, I did once.
No, this button. Right with the flashing light? Yeah, it's red, not green.
No, it's on the computer that you'll have to get it set up, not on the bench.
The thing I thought. I'll try this again.
Ooh,
There
you go.
I've done that
Hello.
3 times. Okay, 3 times the
So
charm.
it decided to work for you this time, right?
Sorry about
Hi,
that.
Ed. No, that's totally fine. So, Charmaine, I sent a question like late this afternoon this afternoon. And I don't know if you saw it yet. Just wondering where the QIO dues are on this, the IO, the Intermunicipal Organization, the Watershed Network. Liz did the
They are
presentation.
Municipal dues,
Okay.
which is A 1920.400.
Okay.
I looked at the last few years and because I can't remember what the exact additional amount was that they wanted, but I increased it by 1,000, which would include that addition.
Okay. I can get in touch with her and confirm what they're asking for this year.
I have the letter
to
back at
see.
the office. I just don't have it right with me.
Okay. The letter for this year? Great. Okay. So you've got the number that we can be sure that that's correct. Okay.
Yeah, and I included it in there. I did a calculation to figure out
Got it. I
what
see what you mean.
what we've spent the last few years and what was in there, and put the addition into that $1,000 extra that I put into that line. Went from 5,000.
Okay. I'm sorry. I see what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And the email you sent out was really helpful. It like answered a bunch of questions I had that were like, why is this going up? Why is this going down? So thanks.
You're welcome.
The other sort of big picture question I have, I mean, there's like a couple specific line items, but more the big picture question, wow, is this, I see that the expected revenue from sales tax numbers is going up by a pretty decent percentage. I'm just wondering where we're getting information to kind of make that prediction and where that's coming from.
I think Ed needs to answer that question. He,
So I'll be happy to. You get everyone of the board members gets that sales tax sheet every month that comes in. And we're now through July for this. And when I made the statement that we're looking at about a $200,000 increase, what our projections are, what I did is I took the last 5 months of 2021, when sales tax was under duress, and added that to this 7 months, and that was the number I came up with as a projection. Only as a projection, because obviously these things can vary month to month. So that's the pulse that I got as far as this goes. So let's see, through July of last year was 800, and these are all figures you can crank out yourself if you have nothing to do at 3 o'clock in the morning and can't sleep. But anyways, it's through July 2020, the analysis was 802,790. I'll leave off the cents. For 2021, it's 1,003,655. So that's basically a difference of the 7 months. Looks like about 556,000. I also took in last year the account of what we would project for the last 5 months. And it looks to be about $200,000 uptick, approximately. Now that's subject to change because we don't know. Those are, as with most things, those are projections. Does that answer your question, kind of?
It does, yeah, thank you. I was wondering where they came from and how do those compare? I don't have, like, oh, I do, never mind. I'll just look at the numbers I have in front of me that I was saying I don't have in front of me. Thanks.
So I thought you said the last 5 months of 2021, but did you mean 2020?
You mean 2020, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, 2020.
So, we go through the 5 years or 6 years on these sheets that we send all the time. And that's where I got the figures from. And it looks like approximately 20% of that sales tax revenue will go to the planning and code office and 80% will go to the highway. Now, keep in mind also, since we're on the subject of sales tax and road maintenance, we'll just segue real quick, that there's a lot of stone and oil that needs to be done next year. Michael, you want to, and we had basically discussed, but we haven't decided on anything. But one of the things that was brought up is to send in an extra 200,000 back to the highway department since they cut their budget last year by 200,000 in advance for the paving. So you want to briefly touch base on that? What we're looking for in the budget for 2022, a lot of stone and oil, I believe.
It's a CHIPS money in it. That
No,
they
the
gave
CHIPS
back.
money-
No, they gave it back though.
No, they were budgeted 400,000.
Right, they
They did
gave 200 up.
They gave up, but that they had to release 200,000, so they would get the maximum CHIPS money back.
That's
So
why
that-
it got confused in there. No, I understand that. That's fine. You don't have to go any further. At least for me.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, Ed, like we had spoken, we're taking the 3 longest roads we have in town, excuse me, longest by mile, that is, Salmon Creek Road, Holden Road, Davis Road. Cricket and I honestly, over the years, have set up like a 5 to 6 year plan on resurfacing them. For us to stone oil them and put a new wear surface on it is the most feasible for us to hot mix. That's just, it's not financially viable. And we're reaching that life expectancy on the surface of those 3 roads. It would work out perfect with that extra 200,000 coming back in to throw it at those roads and then still allow us to do the hot mix overlay on the roads we'd like to on top of the stone oil. So that's where we're at.
So part of me, I always like to use the analogy of the anatomy. Just imagine you putting fluoride on a tooth so it doesn't decay. Exactly what you're doing with these roads, because once that surface gets compromised and the water goes in and expands, contracts, all this stuff we know about. Next thing you know, once it crumbles, that's why it was so critical that you guys saved Lockerbie Hill Road that year. Salmon Creek Road, once that integrity gets worn underneath it, it just all washes out. So that's one of the reasons why we hope that they'll at least have 200,000 allocated to them. And since we have 2024 to do this, as they start to incur expenses next year, we can put some money towards that because it is infrastructure. That's just food for thought. And a request from the highway department, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, since we're having this discussion, any more questions for our highway superintendent? For anybody?
Well, so my understanding is that we're going to be using some of the federal money for that highway budgets. How much are we talking about and where would that be in the budget here?
Well, we're gonna give it back.
That is, what you have in the budget is in addition to the ARPA money if we use it. This is what it's normally
Right.
400,000. Let me look it
Yeah,
up here.
completely separate.
Yeah, it's normally 400,000, Ed, yes. So we'd be asking for that 200,000 back, like Charmaine said, completely separate.
Yeah, I'm asking where that 200,000 that we're giving ARPA money shows up in the budget.
It doesn't because
It doesn't.
we'll have to pay it if incurred. We can't allocate it right now because we haven't decided on what to do with the ARPA money yet.
Right.
The 2024, and we pay when the expenses are incurred. With it, they set this up. We can't dedicate it ahead of time. What you can do is you can pay for the expense. Is that correct, Charmaine?
Yes.
So we
Correct.
need in our budget and then how does this, I'm trying to understand how this works.
Okay.
It doesn't go into the budget at all.
I'm just trying to understand how it works. So we got this 400,000 now, and I think we're getting another 400,000.
You're talking about the ARPA money.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand how that works in this process because, I want to see, how we plan to spend it, how we, get reimbursed, how all that works. Because I'm not following it because this is a whole new process that we haven't done before.
So, okay, yeah, maybe it's confusing because you have the 400,000 that's in the road maintenance, right? Which they try to put in every year. The ARPA money, which is what, 409,000, I think, it's in a separate fund.
It's in a separate fund on the supervisor's report. That's what I'm looking at.
Okay, we don't pay out that money until the expense is incurred or until Mike asks for it. That's in addition to the 400. So now we're at probably $600,000 of road maintenance for 2022.
Right, so how does the process work that we spend it? I'm trying to understand how it works. We spend money and then we put it against that
No,
budget.
no, what we do, well, I guess you could say we spend money. It's part of infrastructure.
I'm just trying to understand,
Okay, I don't know how else to explain it. Here's the expense and you pay it.
Okay, so how do we decide that it's coming out of ARPA instead of, out of?
That's a board decision. We discussed it. We haven't made that decision yet.
Okay, so when do we start saying, okay, we're gonna spend some of it, and how's that gonna work?
We can probably do it in the spring. Depending on when Mike's ready for it, he says, okay, I'm gonna need extra 200,000 for stone and oil.
Mhm.
Can I spend the first 200,000 on that? And the other 200,000 I use up this year? Okay.
But there's other expenses that we can spend out of that as well, and,
It's a board decision. You don't have to spend any of it. If the board says we don't want to spend any money on road maintenance, they can decide that also.
No, I think that's one of the really important things we need to do for the reasons that have been stated. But I also see upgrades to our software programs that could be coming out of that. That's an important expense. When do we make that decision? I know that there's been talk about using it for one of the water line upgrades or water line installations that they need. When do we make these decisions? Yes or
So
no?
when, I guess for lack of, this is not planned, this is a unique situation,
Mhm.
when the expense is about to be.
And we decide.
When the expense, Mike comes, okay, so let's do a scenario here. It comes springtime, it's now time for stone and oil, Mike comes to the town board, I'd like an additional 200,000. I like that 200,000 for stone and oil.
See,
And then we
The ARPA money is-
allocate-
Can I say
Go ahead.
something, please? The ARPA monies are completely separate from the budget. You guys do need to discuss, what you're gonna spend the ARPA monies on, but tonight's discussion is about the budget.
Hey,
So, at some point, yes, you guys need to figure out what you're gonna spend the money on. But can we stick to the budget?
Yeah, my apologies, I shouldn't have mentioned it.
No, it's
Okay,
fine.
Can-
It's just,
I'm trying to understand, so, like, I have only been doing municipal budgets in the capacity I have been for a couple of years, and you understand how they work a lot better, Charmaine, certainly. But like for other budgets, if I was anticipating money coming in the next year, I would put that as part of the larger budget. And so what is different enough about this? Because like, for example, the tax money, we're anticipating it, but we don't have it yet. Like this is all anticipated income. So what makes this different so it's not part of the wider budget, but it's its own separate entity? What makes that distinction?
these were monies that were given to us as a grant it's separate from the whole budget process. I'm not really quite sure why it should be part of it, or why you would think the monies are put in a capital projects, just like if we did the water projects, or if we did, if we what other things do we do capital projects for? It's a separate entity. It's not part of our regular budget. I don't know how else to explain it.
So
these
other
monies that
capital
came in
projects.
were not put into general A because they can be spent in different places. So I kept it into the capital projects account.
Got it.
So it can be spent separately. It has
so there's
its own
a capital
separate
projects
fund.
account. So there's a capital projects account that is not part of the budget process that we're looking at. So
Correct.
that's a separate that we can then separately pull things out of and make decisions about.
Correct.
Oh, so
Correct.
it sounds like what we really need to do is essentially repeat the budget process for the ARPA funds. I mean, not quite as in detail, but so we can look at it and not just say, oh, we want to spend this money, let's spend it, but we can look at how do we want to spend all of this money and look at it ahead of time.
Exactly.
Oh,
yes.
Fun. So we get to do this again.
Well,
No.
on a much smaller scale, yeah.
Right. Okay. That. Thank you a lot.
Part of it's spent. So I mean, with the putting $200,000 towards the roads, I mean,
Right.
we have a
We've
good
kind of
start right there,
sorted.
so.
Right. That helps me understand, because I was just seeing it as income and I was like, well, it's in our budget, but if it, I was confused.
Okay.
That's why we have these meetings. This is fine.
Absolutely. Clarity.
Yeah. And I've got a handful more questions, Ed, when it makes sense for me to keep going.
Yes, keep going.
Okay.
That's what this is about. Keep going. If you have more questions, just keep going.
Yeah, I do. Which now I have to search through to find. One of these may be more of an ARPA discussion, and so we kind of have to touch on it, but maybe to decide it later. For example, CJ, I think that a couple of these are really sort of specific to your department. The question about we were talking about looking at zoning and that you were going to need some contract somebody in for that. Is that in this budget, or is that something we're going to have to look at separately?
Yeah, that would be in the budget. I don't know that I've submitted the revised line for the land use consultant, but that's where it would go.
Got it.
And that was kind of contingent a little bit about the conversation to follow about the scope of the moratorium.
Right.
So
Right. Okay, so that will be part of the budget, but it depends on what the rest of our conversation tonight looks like. And I know there was one more in particular, but I can't find it at the moment, so I don't need to hold everybody up for that.
And we'll circle back again to everybody again.
Perfect. Yeah. I'll try and keep my place next time. Thanks.
Just let it come to you. I mean, it's like when someone walks out
Yep.
the door. OMT, right? Okay.
Oh, I know. Yep. All right. Thanks.
Doug?
I've got no questions.
Okay, Joe?
Quickly, Charmaine, what are the items that are under municipal dues? I'm trying to sort that one out a little bit.
I don't have it here. I'd have to get it from work tomorrow for you.
Okay, I'll take it when I can, thank you. So back to sales tax. So what I'm reading is most of the extra sales tax revenue you're expecting, you're putting into the planning budget as opposed to the highway budget?
No. What happens is that whatever's left over, okay, let's say hypothetically, it's all hypothetical, right? It'll be roughly 19.9%, because if you look, you have your sales tax sheet.
Actually, the 2022 amounts would be 26% B and 74% DB. Not the 2080. We're at 2080 this year for 2021, but next year is 26 and 74.
That's what I was saying, is that more is going into the planning department.
Yeah, 6%, but it fluctuates. Every year it's different.
And part of that has to do with the second plan.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just making sure that I'm understanding what I'm seeing, because I keep hearing the same numbers of 2020 split.
And that's what it is.
But that's not what I'm seeing here, is that it's more like 25 plus 75%. And then on the water budget, I think it was, we had a huge jump, and I wanted to get a little more information about that. So we're talking page 9, and it's line 8340-200, and that jumps considerably. I was wondering if I could get more details on what's happening there.
You're looking at the spreadsheet?
Yep.
Okay, and what was the code again, please, Joe?
Oh, 8340.2. It jumps from 32,000 to 127,500.
I gave you that information in the highlights. If you look at the back page. What's that?
I just want a little more detail. What exactly is going on there?
Okay, so 127, the amount includes the lease for the dozer and the excavator. And then I think that's a purchase of the case 57 and excavator for the 26,000, Mike. Do you remember that amount? And then also a $75,000 for the 10-wheeler. It's right there on the back of the page for the highlights.
Okay. Thank you. And then when we get, I want to go back to the ARPA money, because the way it seems like the process is now is people come forward and say, I'd like to spend it this way, and we decide yes or no on the spending of it. And I would like to see a process in which we look at the 400,000 this year, the 400,000 next year, and kind of scope out and say, let's split it off and say about this much goes to highway, this much is going to go to software updates, this much is going to go to something else, and kind of divvy it up in our minds in advance, as opposed to just waiting to see who can come up with an idea of how to spend it.
Well, I think we talked about this earlier, and my apologies for digging out too much information and clouding the water. Because the ARPA discussion doesn't have to be tonight, because it has nothing to do with the budget. But yes, of course we will, because we have to agree on where the money goes. We also have to agree where we can put the money. We also have discussed that how do we do it so we free up the money to go to other stuff. That also was discussed. All these things are already discussed. So I would like to drop the conversation of ARPA tonight. We can have that at a later date, because we have time. Because there isn't anything pressing right now that I think is out there that we need, but I think that the time well spent tonight will be more towards the budget. And of course, we'll have those discussions, and we'll have the needs list, and we'll go through and see where we can allocate this money, and where it's best used. The only reason I mentioned it tonight was because at this time, I think it was January of this year, last year, is when the highway department proactively gave up half their budget. I mean, that's it. And if you really want to send a message that you really are a team player, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Mikey, but it's $100,000 to pave a mile of road. We have 97 miles, or 99, depending who you talk to, that we have to maintain, not to mention the other 40 miles that we're out on contract with the county to pave or to plow in the wintertime. That's why we have 7-8 plow trucks amongst others. And and what's the lifespan of a road if you don't stone and oil it? It's 20 years. Am I lucky with that or not? I guess it depends on the use. So do the math.
You're lucky at 20 years, Ed. If you're
So
lucky.
let's say 20 into 100 is 25, and you know, whatever that is, right? 20 to 100 is 5, and we're at 4.
Yeah, I have no doubt that we need to put money into the highway fund, because we cut back on road maintenance, and that's gonna hurt us in the future if we don't put that back in at some point soon. So I don't have any question about that. I just want to start seeing how that money is going to get allocated so that we allocate it for its best use. And highways is clearly one of the high uses. The reason I bring it up in the budget issue is because there's things that are coming forward that we need to figure out how we're going to deal with. Highway is one of them. I want to make sure that we have enough money to cover all the road stuff. And so some of it's going to have to come from ARPA because we don't have enough sales tax money to cover all the road work we need to do. I see a huge computer upgrade, a software upgrade that's happening, that's in process, that needs to be paid for, and we need to move in that direction. And it either comes out of our budget, or comes out of ARPA, or it comes out of some other grant money. And so I think that the two discussions kind of go together, because some of the things we need to be doing in this next year, we don't have enough in our budget to cover.
Like what?
Like all the highway work that needs to be done.
I think we just had that conversation about the other 200 going back in, and we can have that discussion with itemized specific amounts when we get, for instance, the analysis done for the technology and the cloud and everything else. Those conversations are going on already. That information is being ascertained in the process. Until we have hard numbers, those discussions really aren't relevant right now, in my opinion. There'll be discussions later when we have numbers and when we have certain lists. Yes.
Can I make a proposal, which is, why don't we, when we look at the 2022 town board calendar, early in the year, we add another planned meeting, as much as we all love those, to do a budget process for the ARPA funds. So we aren't, because I'm hearing Joe's concern that we don't want to just react to what people bring up, but we want to plan for it. But I'm also hearing the concerns of not spending forever talking about really crazy hypotheticals right now that we don't have concrete numbers for. So what if we were to plan to, in January or February, add another meeting onto our calendar where we can sit and hammer through the ARPA budget process? You notice, Doug, I did that after January.
Thank you.
There are some things, and this is a fine idea.
Thank you.
Whereas in January we have in January we have an organizational meeting, so that's a bit of a time consumer. Here's the whole thing. There's some of those things we can decide on to do if we have concrete numbers, like we talked about the highway department. There are other things that, for instance, consolidated water district number 3, the price of materials are starting to drop. So once again, we're waiting for the information to come in before we have those discussions. So isn't that we're not being our due diligence? It's simply we don't have time to talk about anything because we don't know what those amounts are yet for some of these things. So those things will happen because we have to decide as a board. So those discussions will happen. Now let's see where this goes in the future, where we can have, heck, we got 3 meetings this month, right? So I think we can do another one to specifically put a date on this. We simply don't know when that will be time. I mean, you could do one and say, okay, come next year, do you want to allocate 200,000 to the highway department? Okay, you can do that if you know those numbers. You can do it during a board meeting if you know those numbers with a resolution. You can have a discussion in a working session for 10 minutes or 15 minutes on what you think you should do with the money and come for the consensus. But right now, I think they have this pot of money and they're trying to figure out, first of all, what the parameters are. And then once the parameters are, do you put it into this? Where is it mostly needed? And for me personally, I would be looking at one-time expenses, such as internet, such as technology, such as whatever. And I think those are ways to go. Yes. So a long answer to a short question is yes, we can have that next year. Just a matter of when it will be. And we may have to have 2 or 3 meetings down the road or have a discussion during one of our meetings quickly to decide Do you think this is a good not? And put the list together. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But we're still waiting to get some of our reimbursement from other pots of money too, which we're doing with the consortium, which we're doing with other things. There's always different places you can pull these things from. So I think that discussion is coming. But I would guess it may not be coming maybe to maybe March, I'd probably say. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I just want to be sure that we have the big discussion before we get caught up in, oh, we can do this, oh, we can do this, you know, kind of take the step back and look at how we really want to spend it for those one-time purchases and stuff.
Yeah, we did, and we mentioned that. That's why I gave all the board members that sheet, right? Frequently asked questions, all the parameters on it and everything that you all had to look at. And we can review that again, and we can go through this methodically and see where the board feels that the money is best allocated. Any other questions, Joe?
I just want to agree with Brian that I think an early meeting in which we say, these are the parameter areas that we expect to spend, and these are kind of the percentages we expect to spend. So highway has an idea that we allocated half for, you know, more of the money towards them, and not having to guess whether or not the town board's going to go for this plan or not. I think we can come up with some broad parameters and say, this is where we're thinking of, to kind of lead the discussion, and then work the details out as the projects get put forward.
So let's just say one more comment. Let's put this to bed, okay, for now. Because once again, we're being off on a tangent when this is about the budget. And that's this. I don't see this meeting being one where all of a sudden you have all these different pots of money. It's here we're going to put everything. Because you have until 2024 for this money. You're going to get another tranche of money, 407,000 next year. So this might be multiple meetings where you take a piece of it here, you take a piece of it here, and you move down. It isn't like you have this pot of money where you just want to just cut it up into pieces in one meeting or two discussions. It may be a process. Once again, this is the first time and probably last time we'll have something like this. But on the other hand, in the past, when we had, for instance, mortgage tax at 250,000, it was 529,000. That was the pot of money that we carved up at the time, because that's when we put it in reserves and put in the pathway reserves and put other reserves. That was a different situation because we wanted to do reserves. I don't want to get too fast, but I don't want to get too slow. So there are some things, once again, hypothetically, you have a $200,000 request from your highway superintendent. Is that something you do in whenever he's ready to do the stolen oil? Is that when you allocate it? When you allocate ahead of time? Once again, what are the rules here for paying? You have to have the expense incurred first and then pay it. So these are all things we're looking at as far as the parameters. I think part of it is that we're looking at how the process is done, because this is the first time we had to do it. And quite frankly, if we do it wrong, we got to get back. So it's good to be prudent, good to be focused, but we also have to be, methodical about this as we go forward to make absolutely sure this is the time to do it. Did we do it right? How the process goes is very similar to a grant. And you have to have a success story afterwards to do that. So once again, as we peel the onion away layer by layer, we're trying to find out what's the process to do that. I think we're all saying the same thing. We all want the same thing. We want that discussion. We want to methodically go through this and be able to defend what we did and have discussions from other departments also to see, okay, where are our needs here? Are our needs for more security? Are our needs for other things? I don't know if that falls into the ARPA money or not, but I think we have time to research that and discuss it and go from there.
Can we agree that we're going to have a meeting early 2022 to start planning this?
I would probably, okay, so let's
That's what
back
we're
up.
asking.
I know what you're asking. Let's go back up here. So I guess we'll talk about ARPA for a while, which is I can't get this thing off me. So anyways, okay, hypothetical. It's always hypothetical. Charmaine, when do we actually, is it February or March we close the books for the year? Is it usually early March? Oh,
She's on mute.
yeah, I think you're on mute. I can't hear you.
It depends on how things come in. It's usually actually the end of January, middle of February. And then February to March is when I'm doing the AUD. But it depends if we get all the information that we need.
Shoot for April. The reason I say that is because we don't know when our sales tax revenue is in yet. We don't know where the other revenue's coming yet. Or we can do it in February, and Michael, whenever you're ready to stone and oil or whatever, we'll do the research to see how we do the expense. If we're all in agreement with that and what the process is to move this forward, we can do the research and have something ready for you in February meeting.
I would like to see something in February. We don't have to, allocate it down to the.
I think I just said that, so I think February it is, unless people have a talk about it, subject to change, obviously. So I guess we'll get, Dan, you want all 407,000 of it? 409?
We're done.
I got it on board right now, Michael. We'll put the whole pot on you. We got 407,000 reasons for next year, right? I mean, whatever you guys want to do.
We get back to
Christmas may come early.
I think we just have to really think about it, and this gives us time, and I agree, it'll go to more than one department. And so we just have to be very thoughtful about it. And yes, we'll do it in February.
Such as if we get the grant
Yes, fine.
and we have to pay somebody and say in time, we won't know until December.
Okay.
Okay, so there's other draws we're doing here. I should have had the resolution tonight for you, Michael. I'm sorry. I should have let's cut it in half for you. Well, who knows?
Okay, that's it. Next.
All right. Okay. Anybody else want to beat this horse or is it dead? And I like horses, so I hate to say that. Okay.
February.
Okay.
So is that going to be a special meeting or is that going to be part of the work discussion of the February meeting?
Let's find out. Let me do some
We'll
research to
decide
see
later.
what the procedure is first. Because sometimes it can be, for part of a simple resolution, or you can start having the different departments say, oh, by the way, what's your wish list? Right? I mean, they just gave us one for the budget. But now it's like, okay, where do we need, once again, I'll be redundant again. Where do we need something that we don't have, that we need the money, that we don't take out of fund balance, because our fund balance is healthy. Okay, where do we need that, right? Okay. Let's go back to Anna. Any more questions about the budget?
No, but I was happy to see that the consortium of health grant must be working, because that went down. The cost. Right? Did I
That
read it wrong?
was, there is a 5% increase though in their, am I seeing that right, Charmaine? A 5% increase, I think, in there.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, I guess you're right.
But they're also looking to, I think, hopefully do another month, maybe next year of where they don't charge the dues.
Okay,
Like it did, I forget what the term is, so keep our fingers crossed with that. That might be a possibility.
Another holiday, you mean?
Yes, that's what it's called.
Okay.
Where they don't charge you for a month, which, you know, is
Premium
Okay.
holiday is what they call it.
excellent. Okay, Brown, did we give enough time for that to bubble to the surface?
We lost Bronwyn somewhere.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We'll circle back.
Like, she sent a message saying she lost her audio.
Okay,
Then we lost her completely.
She's probably just coming back in later in a minute.
okay. Doug, anything come to mind?
On the budget?
Yeah.
No, I already
No.
said no.
So we're circling around again for the second time, okay?
Quit circling.
Joe?
Straight line. Here's straight line.
You're shuffling money a lot in the snow budget, and I'm just wondering what's happening there. Some are going up substantially, some are going down.
Okay, Michael, it's on you.
I
didn't
didn't hear Joe. I heard something about going up and down. But
Some of the lines are going up, some of them are going down. I'm just trying to understand what's changing.
sure, specifically, I mean, where would you like to start? We had-
You can
we
go
have-
line by line, and you give me a general picture of what's going on now with the snow removal changes.
Wasn't there a summation here about the DA?
The snow plowing went up because the county increased the amount they're paying us to maintain their roads in the wintertime. So that increased by 20-some%, I believe. Obviously, personal services went up 3% due to the raise that everyone got. See, I increased brush and weeds due to the amount of what we're being charged to grind brush twice a year. At this point, I could honestly grind brush 3 times a year. I only have enough money for 2, so the pile's going to sit there until next year. We still have to do brush pickup in the village Monday, the 4th. So that line went up. Let's see, I increased for PPE, and also that would be the A fund A5132, supplies and maintenance 410, increase for PPE, which we provide for almost all town workers. That would be code, that would be park and rec and highway. We also provide all of the cleaning supplies for all of the buildings, and that's been coming out of my account for many years. I talked to Ed about increasing that. And I also talked to Ed about increasing and having a Grants cleaning service come in and help at the highway. At this point in time, Grants cleaning, I think, all of the buildings with the exception of ours. That would definitely free up manpower to actually do other things. Other things went up 2%, electric, gas, telephone. The equipment's in there, obviously, that you've seen. I mean, anything else, Joe?
I
Did I
think
get-
that covers what I was asking. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? With that, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Robin, you're back. Do you have any more questions? I'm sorry we lost you for a while.
Not at the moment. I've got a couple, but I can follow up. Sort of, they're little things. So I'm good for now. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Let's move on to the next agenda item, Velastation Council discussion. CJ?
Yes. Hi, good evening, Town Board. So last we spoke was Wednesday, September 15th, and at that point we received a directive from Town Board to myself and Town Attorney Guy Crow to look into special counsel for the Velastation lands. As I'm sure you all know by this point, NICEAG withdrew the auction of the lands on Friday, September 24th. But in the interim, we've had the pleasure of communicating with Clem Nadeau, and I did send you on his information. So there was a email from me that included a link to his LinkedIn profile, and I did ask him to join this meeting this evening so that you could ask questions of him and see if you'd like to continue to engage or continue to consider engagement with his services for the Velastation project. Obviously, we'd like to avoid a repeat of what we just went through. So to that end, it seems like Clem may be able to provide some background that could be helpful to us. So as the board wishes, I'm happy to answer more questions or admit Clem to discuss his services as desired.
So CJ, one of the things is, first of all, board members might be wondering why are we having this discussion when it may be not necessary. And the attitude that I think that both of us, at least I have, and I think you have also, about putting words in your mouth, is that we would like to be proactive with a strategy. Because we're flying blind on this one. It's better to have a navigator out there. And I think that in all fairness, the board can decide how much the maximum amount will be, but I'd rather find out where the solid ground is and where the solid ground isn't. And experience is invaluable. So that's my 2 cents. That's the reason why I put on the agenda tonight, and because we don't know where this is going on. Okay. So, Guy, you want to chime in first before we talk to Mr. Ladeau?
Well, I certainly could. NICEAG canceling the auction does not clearly indicate whether they still intend to sell. Maybe they just pulled it off the market again because it became controversial. Maybe they pulled it to let things settle and determine a better way to go. Maybe they're engaging counsel. Maybe they want to start discussions with DEC and land trust. Since we don't know what it means, and since it's quite possible that the land could be put back on the market in some way, I still think there's value in understanding what your options are, even though the possibility of an actual Section 70 hearing has now been either made more remote or postponed for a number of months. So I think the consultant's the way to go. And when I spoke earlier with CJ, I said, I think it would be good to have some Q&A so you can get an understanding of how these currents ebb and flow so that you can navigate to achieve whatever goal it is the town is seeking to pursue.
Okay. So on that note, CJ, I guess we'll have Mr. Ledoux. Welcome.
Yes, just as a little bit of a brief introduction, Clem is a professional engineer, retired from National Grid in 2007, at which point he was a senior vice president of operations, held a number of positions at Niagara Mohawk, and participated in several regulatory proceedings before the PSC and FERC. And so without further ado, we have Clem here with us tonight. Hello, Clem.
Hello, Mr. Ledoux. How are you doing? Can you hear us okay?
I can now. Took me a second.
Perfect. That's all right. So we're inquiring about using your services and more for a strategic for right now to see where the unknown is. And I'd like to open up the board if they have any questions for you, or do you want to have a brief statement first?
Sure, I either way.
Okay, well, I think CJ already gave us a brief statement, and it sounds like you're not one to toot your horn. So I'll open up to the board. We'll go in alphabetical order. Andre, do you have any questions for Ms. Ledoux?
Not right now, no.
Okay, Bronwyn?
Not specifically. I think I could probably use sort of a little bit of background from you, sir, before I can ask a intelligent question.
Well, in that case, Mr. Ledoux, why don't you just go ahead then?
Sure. I do part-time consulting. I'm actually retired from National Grid. When I retired, I was senior vice president of operations. Before National Grid, I worked for Niagara Mohawk. When I worked for Niagara Mohawk, pretty much I did a little bit of everything. I'm an engineer, a professional engineer in the state of Florida. I was a professional engineer in the state of New York. I didn't renew that license. I headed up electric rates, electric marketing, customer service for the large industrial and commercial customers and the cities. And so I've got a pretty broad experience. I have been consultant primarily in the area of electric rates, economic analysis, interconnections. I have done some work for the city of Syracuse, city of Oswego, solar projects, wind projects, farm waste projects, PSC complaints. So actually, I've done a lot of different projects. I have testified in probably a dozen, maybe 24 civil or regulatory, federal or state cases, and I participated in the proceedings before the commission for a number of projects, whether it was either construction projects by the utility or electric rates and that kind of stuff. So I got a lot of broad experience.
Okay, thank you. Does that help, Bronwyn? We can always circle back to you.
Yeah, that helps. When do you plan to circle back?
Okay. Doug?
I'm all set, thanks.
Joe?
Yeah, we've got a situation in which the DEC, the Public Service Commission, Parks Department, NYSEG, and possibly the power plant are all part part of this discussion of how exactly Velastation is gonna go from NICEAG ownership to some other entity's ownership and the land trust as well. So my question to you is, how are you at herding cats and helping figure out how that process is moving forward and making sure it moves in a direction that is in sync with what the town's wishes are?
Sure. Well, my guess is the process, we either should move it that direction, or the DEC will move it in the direction of a multi-party negotiation. And in my mind, we could take the approach to actually host that set of negotiations, or work with the county to host those negotiations. But the more we push it, I think that's the best option for us. Ultimately, though, whatever that outcome of that negotiation is, has to be approved by the Public Service Commission under Section 70. So there will be a proceeding after that. My own opinion is we really want to get it all done in the negotiations and promote our position from there. In the end of the day, I think we just got to prioritize what we want the land to be used for. And presumably that means taking pieces of it and saying this piece, we'd like it to be used for X, and prioritize that use. And ultimately, we'll try to sell the most important pieces that are outcomes we want, and be able to trade some of the other stuff. I've participated, by the way, in a number of multi-party negotiations before the Public Service Commission. The National Grid merger, competition. I don't know if you recall when the utilities sold their power plants and they broke up the utilities. I participated in those negotiations, again, with environmental groups, customer groups, social groups, and ultimately towns and cities to come up with a plan that everybody could agree to.
So what would be your approach to get the town into those discussions, and how much time commitment are you thinking this would take?
Well, it's hard to judge, but my view is there's a lot of energy right now. And so it is in our interest to try to move this along now while everybody's interested. Ultimately, as time moves on, the interest will start to fall off, or at least people will be off doing something different. So I think it is an opportunity. My opinion, the first thing we need to do is talk to the parties and try to get where they're headed and what their interests are. And then, like I said, my opinion is we ought to try to be the host for negotiations and try to, if the DEC in theory should be taking a leadership role here, but that doesn't mean we can't push our way into that process and invite them to the town or the county.
What kind of time commitment are you looking at needing?
I would hope we would be able to do something in October. Keep in mind, though, I'm always optimistic.
No, I understand that. I'm asking how much of your time are we talking about? Just ballpark. I know you can't. Just, are we talking 10 hours or 100 hours? I'm not sure what you're thinking of.
I honestly have no way of knowing that. That's pretty tough to estimate.
What would you start with?
Well, the way these things usually work is exactly that. We commit to something in the front end, and then we try to budget to that, and essentially say, okay, we don't want to exceed this in this month, and then try to work our way through that. I'm not sure if you're thinking we would do this with a small team. That is, to me, the best way to do it, and that way we can break up some of the work and have different people participate with different levels of work, and that by definition reduces costs.
Do you think that you have to really convince the other entities that are involved, that the town? I mean, I look at it as the town is a gigantic stake in this, and I feel like, how do we convince them that this is necessary and we have to be heard.
Well, I don't think though, a lot of people's interest won't be that far off from the towns. I mean, I don't know how much NICEAG really cares about this. I'll be honest with you. In the end of the day, customers are the one that own this property. NICEAG bought this property and customers paid for it. So by now the property has been completely depreciated, and again, all of it is owned by the customer. That's part of the reason why it has to go through that Section 70 process. So I'm not sure NICEAG has a huge vested interest in this. What they have a vested interest in is the PSC proceeding, because whether they're going to lose money or gain money through that process, it will be decided there. With respect to the DEC and the county, I really don't myself know that. You probably know more than I about whether the county and the town, the county, town, and DEC have similar interest. I don't know what this, I'm not completely sure I know what the DEC wants with this property yet. And I'm sure their interest is mostly on the waterfront. And I'm assuming yours is mostly the waterfront.
Yes, I think you're right. And the county and the town are basically on the same page. I don't know, we don't know about the DEC.
Yeah, and by the way, I think part of that is it's sort of up to us to sell them on a plan, right? And get them on board with our plan.
I think part of the issue here is the magic number of 500 acres. Because if we can bring it up to 500 acres, then it can be a state forest. If we don't, then it can be a wilderness area. And so I think the DEC's direction depends on how much acreage can be assembled. And that's talking with the power plant next door, who's got water frontage that can be added to this. We're talking about neighbors in the other direction. So I think there's a lot of players here in a lot of directions. And the question for the DEC is, what can we assemble, which then determines what their options are.
Yeah, and that's why I keep looking to say we really want to break up this property into pieces so that when I say that as uses, and then promote those uses for those tracts of land that are the most important for us. And you're right. Then I think, there's probably parcels that you probably don't have a large interest one way or the other. And those, again, I think then we let the DEC have their interest in those.
So let me make a comment here for a minute. Basically, you have a lot of different partners in this discussion. And this has been going on for what, CJ, 14, 16 months going back and forth. So this isn't like we're starting from scratch. What this is, though, is that everybody has a vested interest in getting their piece so that it is useful to them, such as the solar power companies, such as the power plant, because solar power is a subsidiary of it, such as the lakefront, right, to be preserved, amongst others. So there's a variety of different players here that can benefit as it carved up, as you would say, under uses. Whether it's still under the ownership, it gets leased out, or it gets protected, or whatever. Those dynamics have to be nailed out if the landowner wants to do that, which we don't know. My whole thing going forward is that rather than just trying to extract more free information out of you, I think we need to decide as a board if we're comfortable enough with your services, which I am, and also to put a limit on it, maybe X amount of dollars, and see where that goes, and then we can revisit that afterwards. And I would be proposing about 22 hours, which is about $7,500. I think that'd be reasonable for you to get up and running, get educated on what you need to go, talk to the different participants, whatever, and come back with us and say if this is feasible or not. I think that'd be money, but also to get you up to speed. And no offense when I say that, because you sound like a very well experienced person in this field. But it's simply a matter of you need to, I think, start those relationships as we have and nurture them and see where this goes.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would propose 700. I would propose a ceiling of $7,500. That would give you about 22 hours. Do you think you can get up to speed in 22 hours and give us an analysis of where we should go from there in that time?
For sure.
Is the rest of the board comfortable with that proposal?
Yes.
It can be renewed.
Yeah, it can be renewed.
Okay, it can be renewed. So this I think gives you a chance, also gives you some wiggle room. And, I was just thinking to myself, are we gonna be charged with this conversation tonight? It's like, you've given us some pretty, and you've been forthcoming, and I appreciate that. That tells me that you're very sincere, and I appreciate that. So having said that, is that something I think we have to review the contract? Is this something we can pass tonight, or is this something we have to wait to our board meeting on October 20th? And somebody give me guidance on that, because I'd rather get you at the helm sooner than later, on my personal opinion.
I'm sure we can do it tonight.
Pardon me?
Sure, we can do it tonight.
Okay, so we all saw the proposal, what he wanted. I think it was 2 lines, which is impressive, as far as this goes. And we know what the rate is, and we'll put a ceiling note of $7,500 to be reviewed. I apologize in advance, Mrs. Munson. I know you're off chocolate donuts. I'm going to have to give it tomorrow, but my apologies for this. But having said that, to put a ceiling of $7,500 or a limit on this contract, and which upon the board can review again. And maybe that gives you enough time before our October meeting to see if you have come up with anything that you want to share with us in executive session, or if you want to say, okay, this is what I come up with, I need more money, or I'm okay for now. You will have that feedback from you when appropriate. Fair enough?
Correct. No problem.
So, yes, CJ.
Town board want to just authorize me to execute the agreement letter with Clem and essentially just work with him on phone numbers and contacts, and Guy, of course, too. But just wanted to make sure that was what you want.
I think that the two of you should be in the loop. Not that we're not essential, but we are, but we'll use you two as a conduit for Mr. Ledoux and go from there. And
Yeah, just to get him set up with he had asked for some phone numbers and contact information, so I connect him with the people I know relative to those discussions, as well as have him connect with Finger Lakes Land Trust and find out all the folks they were talking to at DEC, because I didn't get the opportunity to talk to them.
Okay, to put a limit of 7,500 on it and to be reviewed as needed. Fair enough?
I would be interested in being in on that, Luke, because I think one of the key points that I understand that I'm just interested in what the town's position is, and I don't think we have it articulated as exactly what we want to do, and so I'd like to listen more than
this. Okay, first of all, the board will decide what it is. Okay, not you. The first thing. Secondly, they're going to report back to us through CJ. Okay, where we are with this, with the talks. So I think it's appropriate that CJ and Guy be on the point on this, and they can report to us on the town board reports as needed, or if there's something needs to be done ahead of time that they can do this. I'd rather have those two on there than and leave it as that. If anything, the town supervisor should be on this and not another board member, as far as I'm concerned. But I'm deferring because I don't want to have too many cooks spoil the broth here. I just want him to get going on this to get this thing done. Simple as that. So having said that, I would propose that CJ and Guy be on this with Ms. Ledoux and have it as that. And CJ, you can report through us to do that.
Yeah, of course. Happy to do that. I think initially,
it should be someone who's been on the negotiations for the 14 months, which is me. So why don't we do this? Why don't you put me on that also? I'd be happy to confirm it, since I've been on it since day one.
okay, yeah, we're happy to get Clem set up and going, and definitely keep the entire town board in the loop. That totally fine with that, and happy to include you too, Ed. And
Thank you.
No worries. I think we understand the town's position. I just want to make sure Clem has all the contact information, which I don't even have all of it right now for everyone. So I'm hoping to talk with Finger Lakes Land Trust hopefully tomorrow. So yeah, get going.
So do we need, I guess we have a motion. Can we, I guess I'll make a motion that we do that. According to our discussion, have you given enough time to write this down? I'm so sorry.
Okay, this is what I have. So help me out here, but I have a motion that CJ will execute an agreement letter with Mr. I'm not sure what the name is.
Ledoux.
Clemendo, with a limit of $7,500 to be renewed if necessary. Ed, CJ, and Guy will, I don't know, communicate with Mr. Nadeau or on a meeting with him. I'm not quite sure what the wording is on that, but
We can do Zooming with them if we have to. We can just reach out.
okay.
Or CJ and Guy can keep me in the loop on this. It's,
I'll just say the three of you will communicate with
sure.
him. Is that good? Does that sound right or not? Or Guy, what do you think? You're making a face, I'm not sure.
Does that need to be part of the resolution?
This is a motion, not a resolution.
Okay. Oh,
I don't know.
sorry. I'm just wondering if just letting CJ execute the agreement is sufficient and we don't need to add those details. I don't know.
I think it's fine.
Just tell me what you want on here. So just CJ will execute agreement, letter with Mr.
Yep.
Nadeau. And do you want the limit of $7,500 with renewal if necessary? Do you want that in there?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
And not the rest of it?
No, that's fine.
Okay,
I would just add that the money's coming out of fund balance.
We have to have that.
I think we need to say where we're taking the money out of.
we don't, sometimes we do, sometimes we
I
don't.
prefer that we do, but
I can add that, wait a minute. Out of fund balance. Okay. All right, so does someone want to make that motion now that we haven't figured out what
I
it's gonna
will.
be?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nope.
Okay,
So the third thing is thank you, Ms. Ledoux. Look forward to your positive results.
Great,
Have a nice
thank you very
evening.
much. Yes, take
You're
care.
welcome.
Nice meeting you.
So third thing is, we'll talk about the moratorium for the 11th time, but you know what? We're gonna adjourn the meeting. We're done. Good night, everybody.
I don't understand why we're adjourning it all.
Because we have a public hearing on this. We can discuss it then. We've already said it. So the meeting's over.
What? We need to discuss what we want it to look like.
We already had the public hearing, so we can talk that during the public hearing. We already have set the public hearing, so we're fine. On that. So meeting's adjourned. Cut it off, we're done.
My understanding was that we were going to discuss what the parameters were for the public hearing, we have the specifics before it.